Now keep moving on. The next section, I think, is going to be really interesting because it's going to explore the sustainability index. And I've got to welcome two speakers on this. Thuy, who is relatively well known for work, is a stakeholder relations manager for DataGene, responsible for ensuring the data provided to DataGene is returned to stakeholders in a form that is understandable and decision ready, which is a conversation that's already come up. Thuy completed a PhD in aquaculture genetics and then led major R&D projects and aquaculture programs throughout Southeast Asia. Prior to joining DataGene, Thuy was the senior research scientist working on dairy bio projects, developing the world's first heat tolerance breeding value. She's passionate about ensuring research is communicated and adopted by farmers. Her assistant for the day, or vice versa, I'll wait and see, is Tim, who's the General Manager of Jelbart Dairies, but also is a board member for DataGene. Tim is a dairy farmer in Gippsland, an Holstein breeder from Inverloch, South Gippsland, maybe gets a surf in or something every now and then. General Manager of a 1,000-cow dryland mixed dairy and beef grazing operation, which also runs about 1,500 other cattle, which include dairy replacements and beef. Tim and his brother own Jelbart Dairy. The business relies heavily on genomic testing for accurate genetic information, and heifer selection has resulted in significant genetic gains across the herd in recent times. And I think in the Improving Herds project, we had the herd muster, and there's probably a few people who had that great opportunity to have a look at the Jelbart's operation. So I welcome Thuy and Tim to the stage. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a very kind introduction to all of us. Welcome to this stand-up version of Millionaire Hot Seat. Are you ready? Where's the pointer? Question number 1, Tim. Were you here at Herd 17?
I was.
Do you remember me as a speaker?
The only thing I think I can remember from 2017, I think it was the first of 3 premierships of Richmond. That's all I can remember.
Okay. That means you don't know the topic of my presentation.
I don't know your topic.
So you want to call a friend or you want to ask the audience?
I think I'll go to ask the audience.
Who was here in the audience were at Herd 17? Non-DataGene, non-dairy bio, please. Jenny, put your hand down.
Daniel over there had one at the Zoeta stand.
Non-ADHIS.
Can we ask Pete Williams?
Oh, he's DataGene. Wow, you can't even ask.
There's one over here. I think there's
Paul,
chocolates involved, isn't there? Is there something involved in this?
He's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Paul, you remember the topic of my talk? Well done. You have I have chocolate for you here. You want to share with him, Tim? So I was a speaker at Herd 17 on heat tolerance, and there's a hint there. And that's 5 years ago. And as of today, Australia is still the only country that produces heat tolerance breeding value. It's not only been validated here in Australia, but also in the US. I have the living evidence sitting right in front of me here. Laura, please stand up. And she's done her PhD to validate that piece of work in California. Thank you, Laura. And I better stop boasting about heat tolerance breeding value before my boss telling me to shut up. Now, 5 years later, Tim and we talk about the sustainability index as a new tool to brief for reduced emission intensity in dairy cattle in Australia. And when we talk about sustainability, we need to consider all the issues that along the value chain that potentially have an impact on emissions and sustainability of our business. So that can be a range of from economic viability, profitability, the well-being of the people, the well-being of the animals, and the environment. So that's my version of sustainability. Tim, what about yours? Could you please share with us?
Yeah, I think sustainability is wide-reaching, and I am more wiser this morning after a couple of lots of excellent presentations that sustainability is really encompassing all of us. And for me, sustainability it's about more than just producing less carbon, reducing our carbon footprint. It's about the people, the environment. How do we put in risk management strategies in our business so that our businesses are sustainable? A lot of people struggle to make their businesses sustainable just from a succession perspective. Simple things like that. Often sustainability is, people don't look at it because it's too complex. It doesn't have to be. It can be broken down into small chunks. And it's not just all about producing less carbon. It's about doing the right thing by your calves, making sure the welfare is looked after, that we're looking to, I'm 20 years probably off retirement or more, but already thinking about succession, and my little boy who's 5, when he's my age, coming back into the industry, if we don't start to change now, will he have a future to come back to? And I think it's really grounding to have that view and say, well, we need to start changing what we do. We can't just keep doing what Dad did and his dad did. So yeah, that's probably my snapshot of how I view sustainability.
It's really cool. I think Greta Thunberg would really love Tim, to hear Tim a lot.
Thank you.
And our industry, Australian dairy industry, have a commitment to reduce emissions intensity on farms by 30% by 2030. Actually, around the corner, it's happening. And last year in August, DataGene released what's so-called the Sustainability Index. What does it actually do? It helps farmers to fast-track the reductions in emissions intensity. We explained what that means a bit later, emissions intensity, the keyword. And internationally, increasing genetic merit is recognized as one of the most cost-effective strategy to reduce emissions on farm. So the tool, the Sustainability Index, is only one tool in the toolbox that farmer can use to reduce emission on farms. It can be used in complements with other management practices. Do you agree, Tim? And what are the management practices, and do you use reading at all on your farm to read for sustainability?
Sure, yeah. I think, sorry, I'll just pull up a couple of slides there. I think my first sort of foray into environmental, like trying to do our right thing, was we installed a solar system started in 2018, and I think it was finally turnkey in 2020. It was 95 kilowatts of solar and 85 kilowatts of batteries. And what I learnt through that is that I knew nothing about solar and what it needed and how to integrate it. There's a lot of hard work with our installer, putting a lot of automation in the dairy to actually capture and use that solar. We don't export anything. So, for example, the sun comes out, the computer in the dairy says, turn on the hot water, the chillers, everything I can, so we can go from using 15 kilowatts of power to 70 in 5 seconds when the sun comes out. So, and same, it can come off again. So that sort of started me thinking about sustainability, and we're saving money month by month on that system. We've also got better power as a result of it. The other things, we're trying to just produce less waste. Generally, it's just looking at what we do, in the sense of fertiliser, for example. We have 8 or 10 zones across our farm, but we soil test every second year, and that fertiliser plan for the next 2 years is done on those soil tests. So we're actually fertilising zones across the farm based on science. So we're not just blanketing lime out to improve the pH, or we're not just putting 3-in-1 out because that's what everyone does and that's what Dad did. So it's trying to produce more with less, or the same with less. And reusing our effluent more efficiently, utilising the nutrient. I think we did some numbers that there's about anywhere from 30 to 60 grand worth of value in our effluent in terms of nutrient. As part of that, we're putting in an irrigation system to use our effluent to grow crops, a maize crop particularly. Just by irrigating that crop means we can grow 6 hectares less of corn to produce the same volume. So you think of 6 hectares less cultivation, 6 hectares less seed, 6 hectares less everything to produce the same using the water we've already got. It's not groundbreaking technology. We're not really doing anything that's hugely out there. It's just thinking about how we can do more with less. And just things like trying to plant trees where we can, fencing off wet areas, just simple things. Mum and Dad planted, I think, 20 kilometres of trees in their lifetime. I'd like to think that we can do something similar in my lifetime. So,
really
I
cool.
think I think make it not a big deal. Just keep it simple.
Yeah, renewable energy, waste management, water management, fertilizer management, and planting trees.
And HR management too.
And HR management as well, the people side of the business. Why do you want to breed cow that actually? Do you use breeding?
And breeding, yes.
Okay.
Lately, more so now that we know what we're looking at with genomics.
So do you actually breed for sustainable cow, Tim?
In the past, no, but in reflection, yes, because a sustainable cow is what we're looking for anyway.
Yeah. So why sustainable cow, in my view, is the cow that actually produces more, which means it eats more. Why do you do that? Why are you actually environmentally conscious?
Well, a high sustainability cow is a cow that produces more milk, it gets pregnant every year, she doesn't break down, she's got longevity, and I think that's really the key to it. Sustainability index is new from point of view of got a tool to look at, but I think we've all been doing sustainable farming practices in what we've been doing in breeding before. It's not, the breeding part of it isn't new. That's the science that we're able to actually measure now.
Yeah. And we talk about efficiency and versus gross emission here. Would you like to explain to the audience a bit?
This here, I think we often confuse it that with sustainability we need to just reduce carbon. And yes, that's true to some extent, but we also, when looking at the cows and the sustainability index, more about producing more with the same. It's no different to our effluent project. So we don't necessarily need to have fewer cows or smaller cows, lower producing cows. But if we can produce more with the same resource, it's no different to having a farm that grows more grass. Like, you don't need more land, you just grow more grass. If we can have the same cow producing the same amount of methane but generating more milk, that's sort of where you get the emissions intensity. And Thuy, you've got some numbers that might make sense to people.
Yeah.
On the next slide.
So this is a simpler version of what Tim was talking about, assuming you have 2 cows, cow A and cow B. Both of them emit the same amount of carbon in their lifetime. Cow A produces 1 ton of protein and cow B produces 1.5 tons of protein. The emission intensity of cow B and therefore lower than cow A, and the sustainability index will favor cow A because it has lower emissions intensity. Is that making sense to you too, Tim? Well, with that, when we first released the index in August last year, Tim has the top hosting sustainability index cow in Australia. And she still remains the top cow. So could you please share with us a little bit more information about this cow?
Absolutely. Well, until Thursday last week when I received this photo from one of our workers, I hadn't actually sighted her. So that's the brutal truth of it. But I guess the beauty with this story is that we didn't specifically set out to breed the high sustainability cow in Australia. It wasn't a specific push. It was just by nature of breeding for production, fertility, longevity, all the traits that we talked about before. You know, she's come out of a pretty commercial herd. And the thing I like about her, now that I've actually looked back at her results, in her 3 lactations, you know, including her first calf lactation, she's done 700 kilos of milk solids in each 305-day lactation. Higher protein, I think she's a 3.9 like a 4% protein, 3.8 fat. So she's actually higher in protein. She got pregnant to first service, sex semen most of the time, every time, and she hasn't had mastitis, or any health-related treatment for that matter. So she's just sat in the herd of 1,000 cows doing her thing, and she just didn't. We don't know her, and she's the best cow because we don't have to touch. We touch her 3 times.
And she's still in the herd, means that she's a profitable cow too, right, Tim? Because she actually have very high BBI.
Yeah, we've actually just flushed her last spring and got one viable embryo planted. So yeah, we should have a hopefully a good progeny come out of her.
Wonderful.
To come.
Yeah. So you could see that this animal have BPI also high, SI also high. So the question is whether, actually BPI also have contributed to the reduction in emissions intensity. So we did a bit of estimation, and when the BPI were introduced in 2015, 7 years later, you could see the reduction in emission intensity in Hastings about 1.3%, in Jersey about 1.4%, and in Reds about 0.8%.
So why do we need another index?
Wow. Why do we need another index? Matt. It's a very difficult question. I'm meant to be me asking question, not you. Well, we did a bit of research, Tim, and look at the blue line, which is a sustainability index. The green line is a HWI, and the red line is BPI. And you could tell that, the vertical axis is the reduction in emissions intensity. With the sustainability index, you actually the genetic gain in emission intensity is a lot more. So that's across the breed, house in Jersey and Red. Then you may also ask a question, well, it seems too easy.
Yeah, why doesn't everyone do it? What do we sacrifice?
What do we sacrifice? Of course, there's nothing called free lunch. If we breed for sustainability, by 2050, we lag behind the BBI about $27 per cow per year. And in Jersey, it's about 19, and in Red's about $5. As a farmer, are you prepared to sacrifice that much?
I think listening to some of the conversations this morning, we all need to adjust, and the senseless drive for profit without any regard to the issues it creates for the next generation is fraught with danger. And if we want to be here for the next generation, I think we need to look at these things, sacrifice some profit for the greater good of communities, the global population, that, we can't just continue to drive profit without any sort of recollection back to what we're doing to the environmental community.
We need to keep the planet for our
So yes, I would sacrifice some dollar value to be a more sustainable farmer.
Yes, and the future for your children and their friends and so forth. Yeah. So thank you. We have a few take-home messages. That one is internationally, genetics being recognized as a very well-established tool to breed for reduced emissions. There is a high correlation between the BBI and the sustainability index, and farmers can use sustainability index to fast track the reduction in emissions intensity.
Yeah, and I think we've also made huge progress with BPI. I'd like to think the sustainability index is of a similar vein. And I think the use of genetics is really in conjunction with a range of other on-farm practices. It's not just a be-all and end-all, but certainly a helpful tool that we can all use going forward, and should be seriously considered in future breeding programs.
Thank you. I have a few minutes for acknowledgement, Mr. Chair.
Yes, you do.
It's escaped. So sorry. First of all, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Chailey Richardson, who the PhD at the time of the index was introduced. She was a PhD student of Professor Jenny Price. Her PhD set the foundation for us to move a step forward to produce a sustainability index with the help of Abacus Bio. Her PhD was funded by Dairy Bio, which is a joint venture between the Victorian government, DA and Gardner Foundation, within the Breed Society, bull companies, and genetic service providers being with us along this journey. We thank the farmers who actually participated in a series of consultations that lead to the release of the index. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sue. So at this stage, am I seeing any questions off the floor? We've got a brief period of time. If we haven't, a little bit of advice to it. Don't call your boss out on stage because it could come up in your next performance review. Okay? Just a warning.
I know you wouldn't.
So, thanks again.